Well, happy Tuesday to you, Kelvin.
Good morning.
It's a grand day, is it not? We're on our second day in Fire Talk, and it's working. Um,
It's
course,
really good.
if
We're
we
really happy with it.
if we go past 4 days in a row, it'll be a new record for a new interface working flawlessly. And I can't say anything bad about this one. It's worked quite well. Today is, as you know, August the 16th. Ergo, it's Tuesday, so we're going to do SEO Tips Tuesday, like we always do, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Seattle time. Well, shameless plug there. If you'd like to be a patron for this show, we'd love to have a patron or two or three. Anyway, on the show notes today, when I was researching just for basic getting started SEO tips, okay, and then yesterday we talked about curated resources, and all the show notes are going to be available at the GeyerCookReport.podbean.com as the graphic that Kelvin's showing right there on the screen over there. And we appreciate that. The show note, the first one that we talked about, has to do with WordPress. And I said, well, there's so many people that use the WordPress interface for their blog. Maybe it's going to be just a set of pages with page-oriented navigation. You can do that in WordPress too. But anyway, WordPress SEO by Yoast is the one to get. And there's a lot of videos that show how to use Yoast in WordPress. So we're not going to go into a show and tell on how to do that. But the one thing to do on that Yoast interface, if you do get that add-on for WordPress, has to do with the general tab. There's one in there about tracking, and I would encourage you to allow tracking. What this does is it helps Yoast Evolve to make the plugin that much better. And being that it's completely free, the data is completely anonymous, I think it's the least you can do, being the plugin's free, right? I mean, if he's given to you for free, then help him out. So if you're on that interface, get the Yoast plugin for SEO for your WordPress site. Now, let's just talk about websites, whether it's WordPress or not. Step number 2 is the bridge that's between Google Analytics and Google Search Console. It used to be called Google Webmaster Tools. They work together. And there's a link there in the show notes to the support thing at Google that talks about accessing the Search Console data from within Google Analytics. Because if it links to your site, and then there's a site links page in Search Console, those are going to be different animals. Because the way that Google Analytics does it and the way that Search Console does it is just enough different to make a marriage between the two worth doing. It's important, if you're owner of a Google Analytics property, to be able to associate that website in Search Console as well. You can only do it one time though. If you've got one link to Search Console, don't try for 2 or 3. Now, if you have a subdomain, like we've got the show notes at https://blog.geyercookonlineservices.com, you can have the blog interface URL be a separate entity in Google Analytics and then in Search Console, and do the main website, GeyerCookOnlineServices.com, in Google Analytics, and get a Search Console look there. And why doesn't Search Console data match the Google Analytics data? Why aren't they the same? Because it's the same place. Is because Search Console does some additional data processing, for example, to handle duplicate content and visits from robots that may cause your stats to be different from stats listed in other sources, like if you're WebLizer or some nonsense like that. And I say nonsense, WebLizer is nonsense. It's going to calculate it different. So the Google Analytics is going to count just users who have JavaScript enabled. So if you get to visit your website and they don't have JavaScript turned on to their browser, Google Analytics won't count them, but Search Console will. So have them both. The keywords page in Search Console displays the most significant words Google found on your site, and Google Analytics does the keywords totally different. The differences, I won't go into all of them, but there's enough different to make it worth having both. So if you get the Google Analytics first and then go in to add your site to the Search Console, it will ask you, is this site got Google Analytics? Show me the link, and then it'll go and verify it, find the code, and bazinga, you're in there. And last but not least, in the third seemingly endless gauntlet, but there's only 3 of them, tips today. A fellow named Tony Edward, and you need to go and look at all his links, and his name I've got highlighted in the show notes so you can get to that link. At Search Engine Land, he wrote an article that simply put why SEO should not ignore Bing Webmaster Tools. The reason being, some things on this, is that Bing Webmaster Tools is different and apart from Google Tools. Now you should be optimizing your site to use Google guidelines and best practices because they have the larger market share for search, okay? And he's not advocating to use Bing Webmaster Tools instead of Google Search Console, but instead he suggested to use both. Have Google Search Console be your primary source, but then from time to time look at Bing Webmaster Tools as a secondary. And I was talking to Kelvin this morning about that. In order to set up the Bing Webmaster Tools, easiest cake to do. You set up an Outlook.com email address to use for your Windows Live login, and if you've got Windows, you probably have a login anyway. And bazinga, you're there. There's lots of new features and enhancements in Bing Webmaster Tools, and Tony says he would highly recommend setting that up for your website. And so then, if you have an ongoing plan to monitor both your Search Console in Google and your Bing Webmaster Tools, you're going to have more data at your disposal, and you're going to get a more holistic view, like a second opinion view of how your organic search is performing. And don't know that we want to perform well in organic search, even better to perform well in local search. So that being said, I thank you for joining us on Tuesday's SEO tips today on August the 16th. Again, we'll remind you, the show notes are available, as always, at theguyercookreport.podbean.com. This an idea that Kelvin had one of the shows I was watching the other day is to say it again at the end of the show. So we're legal. Shout outs to Fraser Ramsey at Edinburgh Dusters, Eileen Smith at Basic Blog Tips. Friends Just Chatting is now on Fire Talk. You can find them always on Facebook group that they have. Look for that blue globe logo that says Friends Just Chatting across the top. I'm kind of doing the preparatory pause for the graphic. There it is. And that graphic shows you what it's going to look like. Look for that graphic and you found them. And we'd love to have you if we're just chatting about this and that and the other thing. We were talking just a moment ago. There's Cambridge, England, where Kelvin is, and me an hour west of Seattle, and Simon in Australia. We were talking away. It's that easy to do, easy as cake. So give us a go. Look at the show notes. I invite you to be a fan, a patron, if you will. Click the subscribe button to get notified when the Geyer Cook Report is live again. And that happens on both Fire Talk and on iTunes. You can get a subscription. And so on that note, I think I'm going to say the 3 magic words. Before I say that, did I forget anything?
No, just to say we'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, well, we'll see you tomorrow. It's a wrap.